Legends, welcome to the Willy Show. Thank you for spending some time with myself and my guest today. As this is a free show, if you want to personally support the show, follow the link in the description, or to freely support it, if you watch the episodes on YouTube, YouTube will split some of the advertising profit with me, helping me out, grow the show, make it better equipment, get more places with it. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Have a great day. Cheers.
Good to go. How's that?
Oh, sweet. That's perfect, man. How are you today, bro?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good.
Oh, it's lovely to finally meet you after some bullshit messages back and forth online. I think it went somewhat along the lines of like, "Hey, big nuts, I love what you're doing. Keep it up," and that was it. I think that's the way all ex-army dudes talk to each other. If not, it
works, man.
It's my problem.
It works.
Bro, you've been busy as, and just by the looks of the boards and shit behind you, you look bloody flat out.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. Run a pretty tight operation.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. That's good to hear. Well, let's just go straight into it. I think as we get to know, because this is the first time we've ever like spoke face to face, I reckon if we just learn on the fly and go from there, that'll probably make the podcast work best.
Let's see how it goes.
Don't worry, if you say anything silly, we can always cut it out afterwards. But if I say something silly, it's staying in.
Keep that shit. It's funny.
Yeah. Oh, bloody hell. Well, Marc Hardy, it's lovely to have you on the Willy Show. No, I have no idea what episode this is. At the moment, I'm just hanging loose on these and just pumping them out where I can. I'm like the least official podcast ever. And if it wasn't, a Thursday morning, I'd probably have a beer in my hand, or a Wednesday. It's even a Wednesday.
Bro.
This is what's happened. I've taken a week off work and I've just sacked it up so hard. It's been the best week ever, but no idea what time it is. I'm just like in bed at like 8, like fucking around on my phone. Just just absolutely no idea. So your background, and I'm not fully over this, but you were Special Forces with the East Boys, is that correct?
No, so Special Operations Engineer Regiment.
So SOER, yeah.
Yep, that's SOER.
Yeah. And how'd that, you're going to be the second SOER dude we've had on the show. We're no favourites, but we had Nathan Bolton earlier, if you know Nath.
I do know Bolts. Yep.
Yeah. And
he's
then,
an absolute legend.
Yeah, and then now yourself. He's got a big influence over in SA, working with men's mental health. And I was just walking through like one of the rooms at work the other day, one of the office spaces, and he's in there just talking to a bunch of people. I'm like, what up?
He's doing some really good work. I love Bolts.
Yeah, no, he's a really honest, like down to earth dude. So you were so you joined Engineers when?
So 2004 I joined, and signed straight up to Engineers. And straight in, mate. I didn't even have to go to a CER. I was just slipped into the back door, straight into Special Operations.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jesus, that's the way to do it. None of that bullshit running around for weeks at a time to try and even make a selection board somewhere to get in.
Dude, it was so random because, we're at IETs and we thought it was the biggest stabbing ever. Like literally we got lined up. It was like the last day of fucking IETs or some sort of shit. And then, the SSM walks out and he goes, "Hey, we need 5 volunteers," as they do. And and then literally no one put their hand up, and we all knew what it was for. It was for like 5 spots that needed to be filled at that time, Incident Response Regiment. Yeah. And no one knew anything about it. We all thought it was just like some sort of fucking stabbing. You have to wear gas masks all the time. And we knew it was loosely affiliated with Special Operations. But we were like, fuck that. No one was really painting a clear, cool picture about it. So no one put their hand up. Lo and behold, the SSM goes, fucking you, and you. You're staying here in Sydney. You're going to IRR. And I just happen to be one of those guys.
Jesus. Well, that worked out pretty well for you, I'd say. How was it rocking up to the regiment?
Mate, it was seriously the biggest blessing I've ever had. Like, so grateful and so thankful for that. I spent my whole career at IRR and through to Special Operations, Engineer Regiment. Spent 11 years in total. So, 11 years, 10 active, because I had a year leave without pay at around year 6 or 7. But like, honestly, it was seriously the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, I think I kind of got there at the period where it really had quite a bad reputation, and we were just starting to do some good work and starting to get some traction within the special operations community. But also, it was at that time when III had a really bad reputation within the regular army as well. So we kind of took it from where it was and we built it up to where it is now. But yeah, there's a lot of work involved and a lot of fuck ups in between.
Mate, if there's no fuck ups, you don't learn. That's the only way you learn anything. If you go back with anything I've ever done, whether it's career or podcast or whatever, go back to episode 1 of this and see how shit it is. With actually another guy you might know, Luke Adamson. He was an engineer as well. I'm not sure who he is with. I don't affiliate myself with any of the with any other unit than the infantry.
Yeah, just stick to what you know.
Pretty much. I reckon there's cadets out there floating around that know more about the army and all this shit than me. They ask me something, I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm on Google, like, where is this unit? I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they're here in Adelaide. Like, okay,
yep,
dope.
Totally.
Yeah. So deployments, you toured with special operations.
Yeah. So 2 deployments to Afghanistan. 2008 and 2010 were my years of deployments, and really, in a nutshell, I probably should have had about 5 deployments under my belt. But after 2010, and this kind of like intertwines into my story and all this sort of shit. I was going through a pretty rough time, and I ended up fucking up a lot. Like I got demoted. I had fucking multiple AWOL charges, all this sorts of shit, and I ended up really just doing myself no favors, and really destroyed my reputation that I'd built up. So I only ended up getting 2 deployments, 2008 and 2010. But honestly, I should have been back to back, like 2008, 2010, 11, 12. 13, 14, all should have been a clean sweep for me. And all of my peers and friends, they pretty much had that, got that on their rap sheet. But I kind of missed out there.
And you mentioned there your story, I guess, and you mentioned you going through problems and AWOL and all of that. Do you mind, going over that with us? Because this is, I'm learning as much as people listening at the moment, because I have no idea what you went through.
Yeah, for sure. It's an kind of I would say it's a pretty common thing that happens in the military, and for a lot of men as well. So both any man in any job can really relate to this, or I'm sure they will be able to. And then also a lot of military guys will relate to this as well. And that is that what happened was, when I lost my mission, my purpose, like when I had completed these tours to Afghanistan, like that was a massive tick in the box for me. Every kind of like childhood dream is like go on a worldly adventure and just fucking kick ass, right? That's that spirit, that boy spirit inside us, that we all want to fucking tick off that box. And so when that happened for me, I lost my mission in life. Like I lost track of my vision and mission, because that box has already been completed. And I knew that I wasn't a lifer in the military. I knew I was just there to like learn some cool shit, do some cool things, meet some fucking cool people, and move on.
Yeah.
So what happened was I lost that kind of vitality of my life because I lost track of my vision, and I hit alcohol pretty hard. So I used alcohol as a substitute to numb the pain that I was feeling, because I was fucking lost, and I didn't know, I didn't have any direction. I was fairly fucking competent soldier, and I got to the point where I didn't need to listen to the hierarchy. That's what I thought. And I was really only just operating on my own terms. I was, doing work when I wanted to and how I wanted to, and I really wouldn't listen to anybody else. So I became uncontrollable as a soldier. And you and I both know that that's not fucking ideal. You need a soldier who who's a team member, who listens and adheres to the hierarchy, adheres to control and orders. And I wasn't doing that. So I hit the fucking bottle pretty hard. I hit alcohol. I became basically an undiagnosed alcoholic. I was drinking 5, 6, 7 nights a week. To accompany that, I was gambling hardcore, and it's a bit of a weird story with the gambling. I was actually pretty successful with gambling. So I wasn't losing money. I was making like 10 grand a month.
Jesus.
And on top of my pay.
On what? On like sports bet or something, or like in a casino?
It's hilarious. So casino, I was actually playing roulette.
Yeah.
And I developed a system, and I shared it with basically all my fucking closest friends. And like all of our group of fucking mates, close mates, all at some point kind of like went and hit the casino with me. And we took them down, bro. We took them fucking down.
Jesus Christ. I'm just imagining all you guys in like all black tuxedos rolling in with briefcases and shit. Like, like the end of The Hangover.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, just to touch on that real quickly, it relied upon a very disciplined regiment of a process and a system. And what ended up happening was it got watered down, and my mates didn't end up listening to it and following it, and they ended up losing. I walked away, ended up winning after months and months and months of application. And anyway, so I was gambling successfully. I was earning anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 or $3,000 a day or a night. And then what I'll do is I'll just take that money and I'll just go out in the town, booze it up, have the fucking party life, premium life, all expenses paid. And I'd rock up the next morning, sometimes not rock up the next morning. And seriously, just fucked my life. Like, I wasn't being a good soldier. I wasn't being a good person. And obviously it's because I was fucking lost.
Yeah.
Purpose. I didn't know what I was doing. So that's what happened for a long time.
Yeah. That's really interesting, man, especially making really good money, having a job, and that sort of in between. I think a lot of people find, I think they think their purpose is money until it might be there and they go, well, actually it's not at all. Yeah. I need purpose. And man, I can relate to that so heavily. I've spoken pretty much in length multiple times about how the hardest part of my diagnosis was losing my purpose, because my purpose at the time was I was training for SAS selection. I had all the shit ready to go. And I was, let's say 5 years into my career. I was 22 or 23 at the time. 22. So it would have been just over 4 years into my career. And my whole years prior to that, before I was even in the army, so like 7 years in, everything I did was to do that selection course. I deployed, 9 months in Afghan. I was fit as fuck, came back, trained. Next year was that. And if I failed that, it would have been the year after. And then when my diagnosis hit and I was taken out of the workplace initially and whatever else, it wasn't anything. It was the purpose. And talking with a psychologist at the time, he was like, "You're not a bucket list person." He said a lot of people are. They get a diagnosis like this and I want to jump out of a plane and go to Paris and do whatever. Where he's like, no, you are a purpose. You need a reason to get up in the morning. Otherwise, you just won't. Because if you wanted to go skydiving, you've just gone. Like, I've got my B license. I just go. I've been overseas. I've done whatever. It's just something you're like, well, I put A, B, C in place and then I can do it. He said, you need a reason, though, to put A, B, and C in place. And now that, particularly that selection or the military's out of the picture somewhat, I was struggling to re-find a purpose and I was fucking off my head.
Yeah, it's integral to if you chunk up and you look at masculine and feminine energy, obviously, every human has both masculine and feminine energy. But if we're just looking at us as masculine men need a fucking mission and we need structure. So we need to know what the next step in place is. And if we don't have that, you will, like, as soon as you lose that capacity, we'll just fill that void with things that we know will give us a quick fix: drugs, alcohol, sex, blah, blah, porn, fucking all this extra fucking curricular shit, or some sort of adrenaline, or, gambling, all that sort of shit happens. It's very easily. So it's like a 1-for-1. We've got to swap it. So if you're doing the drugs, alcohol, sex, fucking gambling, you just got to fucking get clarity on the mission and, the purpose.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. You fill that void. You're going to have that same drive somewhere. And if you can drive it in the right direction, you know, you'll put the same, I guess, effort in. I guess one of the big ones for young men is actually finding, and I'll speak for young men, is finding that direction and what should they actually put their purpose in and how do they fucking find that? For me, it took me a fucking cancer diagnosis, one of the, you know, in the brain to actually, and I say this all the time, I am better for it. I am a better person after this. It's the best thing that's, other than the dying part, the best thing that's ever fucking happened to me. But I guess I got a massive kick up the arse and that gave me that refined purpose. But I don't know how I would have if I was just, you know, a bloke floating around listening to this.
Perspective is a fucking blessing, isn't it?
Fucking oath.
It's crazy.
You hear this about, you know, veterans and shit as well. They're like, well, the best thing, I was actually talking to a guy, a well-known guy, ex-SAS fella, and him saying the best and worst thing that ever happened to me was losing men overseas under my command. Because he said, it's the worst thing in the world, having a guy die underneath you. And he said that it never, like, you know, he always will not be able to live with it. But he said the lessons I've learned out of that happening, he said, fuck, it makes it a little bit of a blessing because I now know how to fucking live better and how to treat people and what to do. And that, he said that's a fucking hard way. That's a hard way to learn. Your best mate die for you to learn a lesson. And I guess, that's what happened with myself, and I guess you do to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, what was I was saying to a client the other day? They were wondering why they have just a desensitized life, like a boring, mediocre, kind of like an average, kind of like if this is the spectrum and this is a line in between, they're just kind of floating in between like this. They've got no perspective left and right of arc. They don't know the worst of the worst. They don't know the best of the best. They've got nothing else to compare it to. So what the fuck? They're just living this desensitized life that's flatlining through their plane of existence. And that's relative to them. That's all they know. So how would they know any different? Yeah.
And I guess that then leads into how you deal with trauma and situations in your life, because if you've never been exposed to those high stress, bad times, good times, whatever, then you don't know how you're reacting at the flip side to it. So it's a bit of a, and I was chatting on my podcast with Dr. Dan Pronk on this same show. He said that if we were sitting here podcasting and a car crashed outside and someone lost their leg and all the neighbours go out, that some people might be their worst day of their life. And he might walk out like, oh, yeah, right. And he'd go to bed that night and not even think about it because he's been continually exposed. That muscle of post-traumatic growth from trauma is so built up that you're just going through the motions at one point. And exposing yourself or putting yourself in situations that have the ability to fuck up and go wrong and you need to learn or get yourself out of it, whatever. It's not only important at the time, but it's important for when it happens in the future as well.
100%. It's character building.
Yeah.
It's like, think about all the people that we look up to, not only in real life, but in movie characters and, you know, like fictional and a non-fictional sense. You know, these attributes and characteristics and traits that we look up to, really the only way that we're going to ever, you know, if you even have the courage to fucking start executing and even be like that, if that's what you truly want, the only way that you're going to have to do that is by fucking real world experience. Get the fuck out there, get your hands dirty, fuck up. Like we said before, you know, I've had this saying, fail faster. And you know, a lot of people get confused with that. Like, what? Why would I want to fail? Fail is fucking, you know, essence of life. You grow, you learn. You don't really learn as much from your wins, but way more from your losses and your failures.
Yeah. And the military is a good one for that. I credit the military so much in how I've dealt with everything that's gone on with me, because I've been exposed to shit that has been tough before and had to, you know, get down and dirty and push through. Everything from fucking PT in the morning. Like, fuck, you know, I always say the School of Infantry is the best thing in the world for young men, because you have an achievement every single day of, and fuck, for me, I've never been one of the unfit guys. Well, except when I came off chemo, I was fucking the least fit guy. But I was always middle pack. I was never the fittest, never the last. I was middle pack always. Just grey manning it up. But fucking the School of Infantry, I hated doing 6 a.m. PT every day. But every day by 7:30, 8 when you were done, you had an achievement and you'd won something of the day already. That fuck, I've had something where, and you always have that I can't keep going. Yes, you can push through in your brain. Mm-hmm. I know, like I have that almost daily. Like I was out running this morning and I had that little voice saying stop. And the more and more you can push through that voice, you should take it not only as a I've pushed through, but take it as a little win that you've bet your brain in something. And the next time that's just that talking again. Push through it again, and eventually it just builds up to the point where you still get that voice at the same time. Like I know, like running now, which I'm nowhere near the runner I was back when I was training hard, specifically training for running. But it's still like the same point. I get that little voice. It doesn't matter how fit you are, you still get it. At the first K or two, you're like, fuck this. And then you just learn to switch it off and and take it as a win every day. And if that's your win, shit, you have a win by 7:30 in the morning. The day's barely started. That is such a good thing. And it's not a win of you've done nothing and you've won the lotto. It's I've actually done this. I've put myself into a situation, I've grinded through it, and I've come out successful on the other side, and I've had a win of points.
Yeah, nailed it.
How important in your life, I guess, was the physical aspect of training and being out with the lads and doing all of that?
So in back in my military career,
in the green, yeah,
I fucking hated it.
Yeah,
like you said before, man, it's just you don't really realize in the moment how character building it is, and the habits the good habits that it's instilling for the rest of your life. Like in the moment, you just fucking fuck this. Why the fuck do I need to do this? Like, stop telling me what to do. I don't want to fucking run 5Ks. I don't want to lift that. I don't want to do that. Yeah. Blah 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 blah. But what it does is it builds grit, and not only does it build grit, but obviously, you look at the physical aspects. So you build strength and speed and, agility and all those types of things. But what you got to realize is that the superior thing that you're actually building here is the mindset.
Yeah.
That goes with these things. So the workouts and the regime of physical activity that I had in the military has now crossed over into my professional life as a performance coach for men. And it's just like a non-negotiable now. As much as it still fucking sucks, I still go through the same pain. I still go through the same excuses. I still say the same bad shit to me. Like I wake up and I'm like, the last thing I fucking want to do is go outside.
Yeah.
Every professional person that you talk to or listen to, they all say the same thing, but it's about the attitude. And so, and the decision to push through that. So only through the past, and this is how our identity is created, by the way. So it's literally just a reflection of the behaviors, an accumulation of the behaviors you've done in the past to build who you think you are right now. So having done years of fucking PT back to back, day after day, I've associated myself as a healthy physical person that just pushes through. That's my mindset. That's my belief. And, given the chance to be lazy, a human being will take the path of fucking least resistance every time. So that's why you got to hold yourself accountable. If you have low discipline, if you have low willpower, you need to fucking build a brotherhood, a camaraderie, and an environment of people that will hold you accountable in order to back up that as a second chance or a second way to alleviate your laziness.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's a funny one you say about humans being, instinctively lazy. And I always say this to people, and I always look like a fucking crazy vegan, but the opposite, like a carnivore. There was a point where I did 30 days of just eating meat. It was fucking wicked. I felt like a caveman.
Wow.
But anyway, humans are lazy for survival. That's the reason we are, because, as a caveman, as a, early human, doing this shit was dangerous. Being lazy is how you survive. You sit around doing fuck all, burn shit all calories, use the energy you need to hunt, get something, fucking lie down again and survive. And people that think we're very far away from a caveman are full of shit. You know, we've been up on two legs for, you know, maybe 100, 200,000 years. And we've been modern day humans for, let's say, 1,000. We can't turn back that mindset. And that mindset of survival is there. But I think the more one to tap into, because that's easy, because you want to be lazy and sit around and do whatever.
Yeah.
The other one to tap into, I think, is that mindset of hunger and getting after something and going for it as if you're a fucking caveman sitting around and a deer runs past, and taking that opportunity and having that bit of fire to be like, yeah, fuck, this is what I'm going for. And, you know, disciplining yourself to, I guess, seize it as it comes.
Yeah.
But in the day, we're pretty fucking simple.
It's primal. Like to enhance what you were just talking about before, the human brain really hasn't developed physiologically in the last 10,000 years. It's still the same. So that programming, that hardware, our hardware hasn't upgraded.
Yeah.
We're still running on the hardware that we're being given 10,000 years ago. We're still trying to adapt to modern day, you know, circumstances or events.
And I guess this is why some modern day shit's so fucking hard and seems so foreign. Like if you, I'm not sure how closely you follow me, but I'm having a week off social media just because it's fucking stressing me. And then I was watching a documentary on this, and I was like, fuck, that's so right, that the stress of it for me was normally humans, you can hold 200 relationships is what you have sort of in your life. Correct me if I'm wrong or if anyone thinks I'm wrong, but this is just from my understanding. You have about 200 relationships, and of those you have like 15 close ones. Now with social media, I have 21,000 people on my just on my phone that I can access every point. And speaking of that hardware, my hardware hasn't fucking changed. And, you know, there must be a level of disconnect with social media influencers between themselves and their followers. It's the only way they could do it. I'm not prepared to have that disconnect because I know it's a person sitting behind their screen talking to me. I don't want to disconnect from it. I'd rather have 1,000 followers who like me and know me, and I can have challenge me and I challenge them and whatever, rather than 400,000 that we actually don't give a fuck about each other. We just like each other's shit. But I think my brain became overloaded because, as you said, that hardware is still the same, and it didn't register having that many relationships. And my personal, that 15 of close people started slipping or started struggling because I was trying to make it 20,000 big ones. And just having some time off, just not fucking on my phone is so nice.
Yeah, it's diluting the quality.
Man, fuck it. Yeah, it's one of those things that hardware in your brain still very, very similar, although we live in a weird world.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like I watched a documentary just the other day as well on social media, and it just reminded me that, you know, depending on what you do, like, so for me, I have a business that's on social media as well. And obviously yourself, you have a lot of like a social following. So social media to some extent has to be a part of our life, but we have to remember that, you know, we need to use social media, not let social media use us. Yeah. Yeah. It's a very distinct line. As soon as you find yourself scrolling, you're like, fuck off. Like, you got to use it very distinctly, deliberately, you know? I know. It's fucking hard. Like, and I know socials, at least for myself, it's not running a business. It doesn't put food on the table for me. It gives me a lot of self-satisfaction. And I know I help a lot of people. Correct. Yeah. But it's like, look, I can take some time off this, but on the flip side of that, it's putting a lot of effort into something that may not show a reward as consistent as income coming in. It's hard to be, if you think about it, why do I do this? Why do I put this stress on myself for seemingly nothing? It's hard. Although I know in myself when I'm logically thinking, but I get way more out of it than if I was getting a check. But it still can be a bit overwhelming. And some of it's pretty fucking heavy shit, man. You know, someone's telling me about their mum's been diagnosed with a bloody stage 4 glioma in the brain or whatever. Like, that's pretty fucking heavy shit. You know, I want to go to the effort of doing it properly. Yeah.
And I was like, look, I need some time off to, sort of decompress from this, and then
Completely.
jump back in and do it properly.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. It's when you, like, as yourself, you're a role model, and the certain responsibilities that come with that. But obviously you're learning things for the first time, so you're learning how to manage you. Like, there's no book or guidance or fucking step-by-step system that anybody's created in order to like deal with this.
Yeah.
It's up to you to figure it out.
I think it was a hard one too with like my recent like Order of Australia or whatever. It was like, it's almost
congratulations, by the way.
Oh no, cheers. Yeah. just a thing for me. But
yeah,
people seem more stoked on it than myself. But it's almost like I was getting pushed in a direction of this is how you should act and this is what you should do. And this is, and it was like, no, but that's not, like, at the end of the day, I'm a fucking digger in the army. Like, I fuck around and drink and swear with the boys and do this and meet girls. Like, that is what I do.
Yeah.
And I had to have that decompression. No, I was awarded this for what I do, and that's part of it. Yeah, I don't want to change because of someone's put a fucking post-nominal on my name, and now I have to be this proper fuckwit that does whatever. No, I just want to be me. And that was a big one to break down. I
think us as Australians as well, we love that. We love the lyric, and we love the jovial fucking, sense of, what these types of role models, people like yourself, are all about, because of the great impact that you're creating. But, it's great that you don't need change. Like, the reason you got it in the first place is because of what you did and what you've been through. Yeah, it was just
some external pressure bullshit. And I was like, nah, fuck this. Yeah. I'm having some time off. Look, let's step back before we go into the masculine edge and I guess your business side of it and your teachings into your deployments. So you're were you attached to SOTG at the time? Is that correct? I don't know that much about those earlier trips in the GAN, especially with the engineers.
100%. So first deployment in 2008, I was attached to the commandos.
Yep.
And then my second deployment in 2010, I was attached to SAS. So I was lucky enough to get one on both sides of the fence.
Yeah. And who do you prefer?
Totally different operations. But from my experience, just purely out of the deployments that I had in particular. So my deployment in 2010, that was the deployment when RS won his VC.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was our rotation. I was serving his or attached to his the company at the time, SAS company.
Yeah.
And so that was that one. But for me, that was probably more active. There was more fines. There was more action. There was more fun. There was more learning. There was more growth. There was more maturity. There was more perspective because obviously, just purely because it was a later deployment. Like, it was 2 years after my first one, and I'd grown a lot as a soldier in that 2 years. So for me, like, I was quite a senior soldier at that time. I had a lot of experience to give and impact to be able to help out the SAS squadron. I think I was a Lance Jack at the time, so I was also in charge of a couple of the guys in my section as well, although there was still a couple of sergeants above me. Yeah. So, there was a lot more responsibility there, and I would just say a lot more happening on that deployment.
Is there anything?
Like in terms because from 2008 to 2010, it started to that increase started to go up in terms of action.
Yeah.
So
Is there any specific fucking stories? Like, everyone loves a good fucking worry. You can run us through it. If you're not comfortable, that's completely fine as well.
Yeah, no. I literally, man, I'm fucking a straight shooter. I'll tell you anything. But the funny thing is about my deployments, it's this really weird fucking dynamic. And the thing is that I honestly think I was a fucking good luck charm because, like, first and foremost, I never had to fire my rifle in an offensive way. Not once.
Fuck. Yeah.
Not once in both of my deployments did I even find an IED.
Jesus.
Do you understand how like
that's
crazy
that
statistic is?
fucking insane.
And I went out a lot. Like I've probably logged a few hundred missions both over both deployments. And so just statistically speaking, that's fucking ludicrous. And however, I trained fucking hard and I knew that I was all over my skill sets and I was competent enough to do it. I just never found it. I never got in that situation. So I've been in contacts and all that sort of stuff, but like, especially the ones that I was in with the SAS boys, they took care of everything. I didn't have to do jack shit.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Yeah, like I just fucking, sat back and just kind of like walked around and, they were just, firing and moving with them. And I'm just like sitting on the back of their packs and stacks and just walking around and doing their stuff. And like a couple of like, honestly, the deployments for me, I don't really have any fucking exciting stories myself. All of the stories that I'm involved with are other people's stories.
Yeah.
To be honest. For instance, everything just seemed to happen in other teams.
Yeah.
And I was moved around teams a lot, mixing up, and then wherever I was, the shit was happening the other direction.
Yeah. Well, it's either good or bad luck. It depends who you'd ask, I think. But I think if everyone puts their logical hat on, it's fucking good luck.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that I had to take away from it. So I sat down long and hard and I thought, like, what do I want to take from this? What does it mean to me? And I realized that I really fucking like the person that I am now. And I have the results in the life because of the situations and circumstances that I've had in life. That those situations have built me to who I am today. And because I'm actually really fucking fulfilled and happy, then therefore I need to love my history. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's good to hear. It's good to hear, man, like a guy like legitimately say I'm happy with how everything's turned out and whatever. Like there's a lot of guys, I guess, on that grind, and I'm not saying you're not on that grind, but who are not satisfied at all. That it wouldn't matter what came into their life. And I'm a little bit like this, that it's not satisfying. It's actually good just to have someone be like, no, look, I'm on the way somewhere, but I'm also happy with where I've come from and what I'm doing and all of that as well.
Correct. Yeah.
It's something a bit blissful about it, I think.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, there was also a time where I was down and depressed because, nothing crazy. This is fucked up, but nothing crazy ever happened to me. So I'm like, why? Like, it's like a FOMO type thing. I'm like, what? Why? And then so I went through a fucking, a bit of a low and I'm just like, why won't fucking something cool happen to me? And, in a fucked up way, that's a really weird thing to think. But
yeah, I guess so. I guess not. Like, I know our tour, all the grunts came back a little bit, I guess, undersold because we, like I didn't get any rounds off. I didn't, and it was sort of like, fuck, I'm in the infantry to do this. I want those stories of fucking, going through and doing this and kicking indoors and doing whatever. That's what I want. Even if the challenge of our tour was, as high as that because we're doing a different job, we're doing a job that isn't regular infantry work, in Kabul, in Bushmasters, doing whatever. It was like, but I also want to be in the shit. But I guess the flip side of that is, well, yes, what if we didn't come home with Jonesy or Damo or Scotty or whatever? What if we didn't do that? How would you? And I'm like, fuck, yeah, that wouldn't fly for me either. Yeah, I'd give that up at that point. That's what you need to think about is everyone wants to do that gangster shit until something like that happens. If you were to go in any of those dudes who have been involved in those major, cool, badass fucking things, that, hey, you can have your best mate back or your section member or your team leader for that not to happen, of course everyone will stick their fucking hand up.
Absolutely.
So it's a hard one. And guys, guys want that shit. Young men want that fucking, bigger and better and faster. They're the guys who are appealed to it.
Totally.
Some guys just don't get their war.
There was like fucking major fines, like contraband, explosives, weapons, fucking, a couple of times, like we had to lay offensive, explosive emplacements in order to, make a tactical retreat, shit like this.
Yeah.
Like it's just, like none of the, what would you say? It's none of the like firsthand, like, fucking gung ho, firing from the hip.
Yeah, yeah. That's what everyone wants. I was watching a zombie movie last night with the missus, and I was like, see, that's what I want to do, because I'd have no remorse for these people. There was like this, it's some bullshit fucking Netflix thing, and they come up on this Black Hawk at the end, and there's this like South Korean SF boys just fucking nailing these zombies, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. Put me in like a Black Hawk, out with my feet out the door, and shoot some zombies. And I'll like, yep, my career, I fucking retire. That's it. That's all I want to do. But yeah, of course, the realism of it doesn't happen exactly how we want.
But you're capable. That's the thing. Like, you know what I mean? We can at least rest assured. It's like, because that's one of the things I'm like, it runs through my mind. I'm like extremely capable. And you see those movies and, you know, like, oh yeah, you can move in and out. You could do that stuff. You could, if, you know, push comes to shove, like you fucking jump straight back into a team and do that shit.
Yeah. And I guess
most people don't have that experience.
No. Oh man, I because I'm on the way out of the military. I'm out in 4 months as of like today. Medically separating. And I've always thought, fuck yeah, but if something kicked back up, I know that I would, you know, have to go out for a bit of a fucking run and a bit of a fucking push-ups and shit, and then I could slot straight back in and do some of that shit. And it's something I would do, and I think it's something anyone serving would do if, you know, something kicked off, you know, a Vietnam size thing kicked off or bigger, that all of us would be back in. And it's something that I was like, I'd still be capable to do that. And it's so good knowing that you have that capability, or at least the capability to learn. Like, you could be out of the service for 15 years, but you know how the learning is taught, and you know how to learn the way they teach. That, yeah, you do this hands-on. And that's one of the hardest things about being a digger or a recruit IET, is you don't get why the fuck they're teaching you this. And I've always thought that everyone in their career, like your 4-year minimum Rosso, you should only be able to be allowed to get out once you're a full track, because you don't understand. Like, I didn't understand shit until 6-7 years into my career when I was a full corporal, that, that's the reason he's doing this, or that's the reason at Kapuka they did this. And I was like, fuck it. It was like, if I got out as a dig, I would have been like, that guy was just an arsehole. Not, well, actually, no, he had this bloke yelling at him, or this just needed to be done, or he asked me because he could trust that it would actually get done. And that's the performance punishment side of, you know, people who are better at the job tend up getting more work, and guys who are shit get less work, because if you need something done and someone trustworthy to do it, you end up stabbing the same few dudes, and it's actually hard to reshare that load.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's interesting, man. It's a funny world in the green. But the lessons learned, and I guess we'll jump into what you're doing now. You know, performance. Would you say performance coaching?
Well, it's like,
is that the right term?
I hate to put a label on it, but it's like performance and leadership coaching, essentially.
Because I was thinking in my mind life coach, and I'm like, no. Every time someone says life coach, I think of some like vegan hippie douche on fucking Facebook being like, buy my course and millionaire mindset. And I'm like, oh, fuck off. Skip ad.
That's what I think too. Yeah, there's definitely a negative connotation to life coaching.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most elementary levels of coaching. But then obviously as you go up, you know, and you kind of like niche and get more narrow and more specific, the level of coaching, you know, increases, or the level of competency goes up.
And those that have done too. So it's a bit of those that can't do teach, where it's like there are people that do this purely because they haven't succeeded elsewhere. I think the credibility of having someone, you know, ex-defense, you know, special operations, whatever, it gives credibility of, no, I've done this, and I've lived the lessons I'm teaching. Where you have these 18, 19, 20-year-old, even some older, that have never actually, they're teaching business, but they're never successful in business. Yeah, what? And I always think that. I put up a thing on Instagram about a week ago where I was like, if you were so good at business, you wouldn't be teaching me how to set up a fucking Shopify account. You'd just be promoting yours, doing your shit, selling stuff. And I often think that with the really good performance life coaches, whatever, are the guys that lived it, fucked up, you know, over years, And then now I went, well, fuck, these are the lessons I've learned. There's a way I can then pass this on.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, that kind of like ties in with the story of like losing my way, losing the mission, and then most importantly, like losing my identity.
Yeah.
So when I left and I separated, and here's the thing, man, I've been kind of like in the personal development world since I was about 15 or 16. And I've been, just like generally speaking, a pretty positive person my whole entire life. So when I thought about leaving the military, my idea of leaving the military was going to be clean, sweet, good to go.
Yeah.
Man, it fucking hit me like a ton of bricks. Little did I know that, like I had this identity crisis of, and this is really important. A lot of guys are going to resonate with this, especially military guys. And I said this thing, it's like, if I'm not a fucking soldier, who the fuck am I? And this is what, destroys us from the inside. It's because our identity is at the core of who we are, which, affects our behavior, which affects our results in life. So if we don't have our fucking identity switched, or at least a new purpose or path to switch into when we transition from military, and, like even if it is just purpose, then at least you've got enough time on target in the new job in order to create an identity. But if you just go into nothing and then you've got that time to think about to yourself, like, who am I? And then that's just like a downward spiral of fucking depression that, is a very slippery slope. And momentum is a cruel mistress. You can go up or down like that.
Sebastian Junger in the book Tribe talks about this, as he thinks the worst thing for ex-serving members is the potential for full pensions for the rest of their life, because they get out and they don't need to find a purpose.
So fucking good.
He says, if you haven't read the book Tribe, it is the fucking, it changed my whole life on how I view junior soldiers, senior commanders, post-traumatic stress and growth, but also just day to day.
Who was the author?
Sebastian Junger. So it's Sebastian spelled, however, and Junger is Junger. It's called Tribe.
Gotcha.
So basically the premise of it, and this is where so many people can resonate, was he embedded himself with the Army Rangers in Afghanistan for months, and then also embedded himself with an American Indian tribe, and saw the similarities between how people operate in a tribe. And he said, even if you hate your position, you know your position. So if you're some young lead digger, it's so clear cut that, well, your lance jack's, or this senior digger's above you, the lance jack's above him, the corporal, the sergeant, the warrant officer, the major, the whatever. And he said it's so fucking clear cut of where you sit in that tribe. And he said with these ancient tribes, we'll call them, that you're born into a position. You're born in this family, in this position, and that is what you'll do for the rest of your life. And there is no such thing as like PTSD in those, and sort of losing your way. And he said if you look at the suicide rates, whatever, in the army, in that tribe, it's so low. But then once they get out, these guys have lost that tribal sense. And say me and one of the lead diggers get out, we're now just civilians. We don't know where we fit with each other or in society. And he talks about having that tribe is so important. And he also talks that guys, once they have whatever happened in the mill, they get out on full pension, they're not actually forced at all to re-find a purpose, because their purpose, well, what you see on the outside as what you need a purpose for to pay the bills is done. And you just become like a sponge. You just sit there. You don't need to do anything. And he talks in depth about that. And a really interesting stat, man, was the lowest suicide rate in New York ever was the 2 weeks following 9/11, because everyone felt in it together that this terrible incident had happened. But we're in it as one, and we're going through it, this terrible thing that's happened. The lowest suicide rate ever in London was during the Blitzkrieg, whatever the Germans were bombing London.
Yep.
And partially or mostly because they were all in the bomb shelters, bunkers together, that people felt as one, and that was the tribe. The country was a tribe together. And this flips.
To survive together.
Yeah, and I was talking with a a sniper from 2 Commando specifically about this. And he brought up one of the major reasons we had a lot of issues with veterans in Australia out of World War I and II is our soldiers went to war. Australia didn't go to war as much as some other countries. So, yes, there was some bombings in Darwin or whatever, but to the point where English soldiers went to war fucking 25 Ks away across the English Channel, whilst their families and everyone's getting bombed in London and there's Germans crossing all of that. Where the Australian guys went 4,000 kilometres away, a lot further. Australia got, bombed to a degree, but if you look at the compared to somewhere like London or anywhere in Germany or whatever, and it wasn't that that tribe didn't hold as, the whole tribe didn't go through it. There was this massive separation. And that was one of the really bad things just geographically. One of the fantastic things is our geographical location, but as far as that tribal sense, it really made it hard for guys coming back as well. They didn't go through it together. And it's, that speaking of like leaving defence, it's one of the things I'm concerned about is I lose that tribe. You lose your hat badge, which symbolises, you wearing your fucking hat, something that symbolises who you're part of, and your patch of who you're part of. And it's something that almost concerns me a little bit of like, oh, fuck, am I prepared to lose that?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a hard one.
Replace it.
Sorry.
You just have to replace it. You got to find another group, another belonging, another tribe.
Yeah, I just don't know if I'll find something as strong because like the life lessons I learned as a young man in the Green was fucking intense. I always talk about that Kapuka was the fucking shittest time ever for me, but the most important thing I've ever done. Because I changed so much. Like, some people find Kapuka easy, and they're the ones that are willing to change. I was a just 18-year-old man. I didn't want to do that shit. I didn't want to change. I wanted to bloody meet girls and drink beers and fuck around at parties. I might have thought I wanted to go running and gunning and shit, but not really. Like, I didn't want to be this adult soldier. As much as I wanted to be a soldier, I wanted the cool parts, not the behind the scenes. I wanted the Call of Duty missions. But yeah, it was it's going to be a weird one to see where I end up out of it. What steps did you initially do to re-find that purpose and where you belong?
Yeah, so I had to go through a lot of fucking shit. So basically I separated in 2015, left, and I had a lot of leave. So I had like 9 months paid leave.
Jesus. Oh, yeah.
3 months long service and then like 6 months fucking paid leave or I don't know, something like that. It was ridiculous. Yeah. So when I left, I didn't have a clean fucking exit either, which was part of my problem. There was no official, your service is done. It was just, I kind of snuck out the back door. There was no fucking boozer parade. There was no, hey, see you later. Thanks for coming. It was just like, I fucking dodged and just got my way out of there. And then I was on leave for paid leave for 9 months. So once again, I was on good coin, but I wasn't earning it. I wasn't doing it for it. There wasn't an exchange of value there. So there was a false sense of security, which really fucked me up. So one thing in the military that you and I both know is the security of being paid every single week is amazing. However, it's got a double-edged sword to it. So, in the military, we're either working really fucking hard or not fucking at all. It's usually one or the other. There's no real in between. Yeah. And so what happened was it really gave me this, once I moved out into the civilian sector, it gave me this false sense of security that I didn't really have to work for my money. And so even though I had a fucking crazy good work ethic, when I wanted to, or deliberately, or it was all or nothing, what I didn't realize is that I lacked a lot of consistency in my work ethic, and it really showed holes in that. So what happened was there was a whole bunch of things going on at the same time. So I didn't realize I lost my identity until about 2 years ago. And I've been out of the military now for 5 years. So when I first left, I was in a relationship. Now, because I had lost my purpose, all right, we talk about masculine energy. In order for a masculine energy to thrive and survive, it needs a purpose and needs direction, needs structure. Because I didn't have that, what happened was in my relationship, I dropped out of my masculine and into my feminine, and my partner at the time stepped up into her masculine. And so there was a dynamic swap of energy, which was toxic and created us to like fucking separate.
Right.
So a lot of like, that's something very, very common that happens to a lot of men, and it causes dramas within relationships because like I can tell you're a naturally masculine guy. Like your energy is way more masculine than it is feminine. And so that's your natural inclination. And if you put that into a relationship context, you know, women will usually be feminine, more feminine in nature, and men will be more masculine in nature. That's your default setting. But you change those dynamics and all these different factors start happening. So you're not really, you know, living up to your full potential, your full capacity, your full existence. So what happened as a result of that is I actually end up sabotaging that relationship. And that triggered that fucking downward spiral of fucking depression. I didn't know I was having an identity crisis at the time. And something that I wanted to mention before that you mentioned is it's just part of with like sticking with your tribe. So all of my mates in the military, I segregated myself from them when I left. And the only support I had was my partner at that time, which we were already in a fucked up dynamic situation of masculine, feminine, opposite polarity. So that was causing a lot of drama. I felt fucking alone. And one of the biggest mistakes I see that's also happened to myself is that segregation from the pack. Like it is integral to keep in contact with these friends, these mates, this camaraderie that we've developed over years and forged through some of the toughest fucking times we've had. That bond is irreplaceable, and it really needs to keep continuity, because if you break the continuity, that has a direct reflection, a direct impact on your mental health, your physical, your emotional health, and like I said, it's a slippery slope after that. So not only was there this relationship dynamic fucking twist going on.
Yeah.
I lost my identity, which I lost my purpose. I was, you know, cruising around from job to job. I knew I wanted to be in the coaching industry. I knew that through my personal development work. So I kind of had a loose idea, but I was going from job to job. Like I worked some fucking blue collar jobs. I did fucking Uber driving for fucking ages just to like, as a means to an end. And I just started to accumulate the specific knowledge and skills that I needed in the coaching industry. So I went and worked for a couple of pretty well-known coaches within the coaching industry in Australia, just in order to, you know, give value and serve their businesses and companies, but also to learn business models and structures and sales and the key skill sets that I needed to be able to move forward and build my own coaching business. So it was a journey of that. And because my mindset wasn't primed properly, what I found was it came back to this money mindset thing. Like in the military, they don't really teach you how to handle money.
No.
Not properly. So what happened was I'd always had this flush cash. And remember that I was gambling a lot and I was quite successful. But when I stopped gambling, because I realized that was fucking toxic, I didn't have that source of income anymore. And then I was just literally, you know, living off a couple $100 a week. What happened was I developed this really bad relationship with money. And so what had happened in the military was like, I'd just get my fucking paycheck and I'd just fucking spend it. I wouldn't invest or anything like that. I spent all my money on travel around the world and just like fucking experiences and parties and fucking coolest fucking
dig a life. Yeah,
living the life. Seriously, I've fucking lived about 5 lifetimes with the money I've spent. And I just really didn't invest it properly. So I had no like solid foundations to support me when I got out. It was just regaining my control back over my work ethic and finding, you know, a method to be able to make money, sustain myself, you know, consistently. But what was also going on in my mind at the same time was, because I'd been so disobedient in the military, I developed this fucking mindset of like, you can't fucking tell me what to do. And I don't want to do what I don't want to do. I only want to do what I want to do. So I really didn't even want to work for everybody. I self-sabotaged every single job that I had. And, you know, I was lasting only like 6 months in places and stuff like that. So my mindset was really fucked up. And what ended up happening was I got to a stage, my worst, was only really about 2.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And seriously, I was living off the government funds, like the job seeker payment, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's only about $600 a fortnight. I was by myself, didn't have any partner. My ego was so fucking high that I couldn't ask. Well, I didn't think I could ask for help.
Yeah.
Biggest problem. I didn't think I could ask for help. And my ego was so fucking stuck up and stubborn. And it got, I was living in hostels. So I was living in Sydney and I was living in hostels with fucking backpackers. Now I love traveling. I've traveled for like 2.7 years of my life. I love backpackers. I love hostels, but for sustainability and living, like it's not ideal.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, build a business, get off the ground, do fucking consulting work and like freelance work wherever I can. And I just kept on fucking not being able to just get those first steps in place. And honestly, like there were times where I felt like not killing myself, like, and not for this to be super depressing, but like, I didn't feel like I wanted to be alive. It was like, how the fuck, this is what I kind of thought. I'm like, how the fuck could I be so intelligent or like, kind of like well-versed, you know what I mean? Experienced, but how could I be having these results in my life? And that just got me down. And so, I never really thought about exactly how I would do it. It was just that feeling of like, fuck, like, I don't want to fucking be here. Like, this is crazy. That was the worst. You know what I mean? Yeah. Living day to day, sometimes living off like fucking less than $1, like literally, I'm not joking, like less than $1 a day. I'm trying to figure out, okay, cool. Like if I buy a 5-pack of noodles, right? If I eat 1 pack a day, I'm like, cool, sweet. I can save like $5 this week.
Yeah. Fuck.
And this is also, so going back to duality, this is a double-edged sword. This is part of the reason why I have so much determination, grit, and ambition now, is because I fucking have known what it's like to be down in the dumps and like living at the lowest of lows. And I've also done the opposite side as well. So end up getting my shit together. And the way I did that was I happened to work for someone who, and this got me into men's coaching specifically. This kind of got me on the right track because I was in this coaching umbrella of, I was doing sales coaching, I was doing mindset coaching, and I had my own coaches as well. But like when I found this specific male mentor, he really just set my life on track. And what happened was when I stepped into his business, he was coaching men over 35 who are married and who are having like a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And excuse me. So he really just like put me right on track, and he made me realize that you need to figure out your identity first and foremost. That's the first thing you need to do. Who are you? What are your traits, habits, morals, characteristics, values? What are they right now? And what results are they giving you right now? So who are you now, and who do you want to be in the future? And where are you now, and where do you want to be? And when you can fucking map that out with a booklet, a step-by-step process, you get super fucking clear, and that confidence reinvigorates you. Also reinstitutes that purpose back into your life.
Yeah.
That we all need. So to really just like answer that question, there was a period of like 2 to 3 years where I was struggling big time. I hadn't figured out that my problem was an identity crisis, and I was just going through a massive low and not willing to consistently earn money and work for someone, which was making my life harder, but it's also made me stronger.
Yeah. Fuck, that's a lot. I guess a lot to take in as far as, finding that identity. And then really your purpose of wanting, I guess, to help young men. Where is this going? As far as you say, you talk about, laying out, what you want and where you want it to go. What do you see as like the end result of the masculine edge currently?
Yeah. So where it stands at the moment, like let's just say a 10-year vision, is really, you can put it down to one sentence. Really, why I'm here, my purpose is I want to help men become kick-ass again. I want to help men become more effective. So there's this real fucked up thing that's happening in this level of society where we're at this moment. And it's taken over 100 to 200 years to kind of like slowly break down and develop and get to the stage where we are. So first and foremost, this may or may not offend a lot of people, but it's pretty just cutthroat in the way it is. And you either love it or you hate it. Either way, it doesn't matter. So men, look, both humanity, females and men are getting, fucked up in the raw end of the deal, but I just focus on men. So men are really just getting feminized, and we're losing our masculine energy. We're losing our basic masculine primal fucking instincts.
Well, we're being told it's bad. That's what it is we're being told the traits that break down masculinity, we're being told is toxic masculinity, and that it's bad, that aggression is bad, that anger is bad, that strength of character in some ways is bad, challenging people is wrong. That's one of the problems is that if you use the word masculinity or if you describe yourself, I'm a masculine guy, you're a sexist. You're an arsehole. And it's just, Yeah,
definitely. Everyone's pointing the finger, right? Everyone's outward looking. It's like, fix this, fix that, fix that. The biggest thing we need to fix, we need to turn the finger around. We need to fix ourselves. Imagine if every single person just like fixed themselves to a fucking mediocre, average standard, like a lot of the problems would go away. So, there's problems with masculinity. Like it's a fucking generational thing. It's even larger than generational. So, my mission essentially is to help men become kick-ass again, help them fucking become effective. And if you really want to break that down, learning, having the skills that we learned in the military, routine, structure, and discipline. These are the fundamentals that if you can instill back into a man, he becomes alive. He becomes like, he steps up, he takes responsibility. He's a leader in his own right. If he leads himself, he's going to lead his family. That's not only just a fucking like helping himself, that's a ripple effect of, family and community. And if every single man could nail his routine, structure, and discipline, like imagine the effects that could have.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm about. That's the mission and the purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of recapturing men being men rather than sort of browning out a generation of no. It's not a clear cut line. Everyone's the same. Well, no. That competition between men isn't a bad thing. And schoolyard fights and competition and that shit happening, that drives men to be stronger and faster and more disciplined and whatever. And it's just being, 100%. I don't know who the fuck's doing it, but it's just been like, no, that's wrong. It's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, totally. Like there's definitely a couple of like really important timelines that have happened. Like if you think about the world wars, right? So like all the men are gathered up and sent off to war. Then we're left with just the women and children. They have to step up to their masculine, and that's not their natural dynamics. So, like think about, we go back to World War I, World War II. These women were instilling what they thought were the best masculine traits into that generation of children at that time. And, that skews the tilt, that skews the polarity, that skews the foundations of masculinity, because feminine energy is teaching what should be what masculinity should be. Yeah. So that's just confusing as fuck.
Yeah.
That's just one timeline generation thing.
Yeah. And I know there's been a lot of talk about that conscription wouldn't work anymore. The time we were conscripting soldiers, we were conscripting farm strong lads, doing whatever. The amount of people we have like that anymore is actually not fucking many anymore.
Yep.
And that it probably wouldn't work. And even it's interesting if you look at what we would see as Russian male traits came massively out of the Second World War, that many soldiers in the Red Army were killed. But the ones that tended, so people think about, when you think of a Russian man, a lot of you think the villain on a fucking James Bond movie or whatever, but you think a little bit, well, look at Vladimir Putin. You're a bit out there. You're very masculine. You're tough. You're stone-faced. There's that little bit of like craziness out there, just look at fucking Russian driving bloody videos or something. And they break that down in some stuff I've been watching about, yes, the reason those traits hold true is they're the people that tended to survive how Russia fought. So if you look at how Russia invaded Berlin, okay, we don't have enough weapons for everyone to have a gun. If the guy in front of you dies, fucking pick up his weapon and keep fighting, and then you die and this guy will pick up yours.
Yep.
And these guys are putting it down. Those traits that we hold as Russian are because those were the type of guys who survived. The ones who survived fighting like that are a bit fucking out there and very fucking, sort of cold and stony and go like, and that's what has bred in through men dying. And this is where you look at artistic expression. If you look at, and Russia is a good example of this because it's so polar. You look at Russia hundreds of years ago, the art and the creativeness was insane, how much there was. It was one of the most creative and artistic places in the world. Look at it following the wars, and it's stone, brick, square buildings, one colour. Everyone marches in lines. That creativeness, the people, those creative people, like it or not, with those characteristics in the sort of war they fought, they're not the ones who survive. The ones who survive are those mates you think, fuck, he's a bit fucking, he'll fucking punch you at a bar. And those are the characteristics that tend to live, and it's been bred in. And it sort of goes to how you say, we might not be as extreme, but it's bred in through, men being sent away and this happening and terrible things happening to guys. I remember meeting a guy's son, old Special Forces guy, really hard dude, and his son being like super, super wimpy. And we were talking about it afterwards, like, fuck, that's such a weird dynamic that's happened. Yep. And what one of the lads ended up breaking down to, the reason for that is he's been exposed to so much. Correct. He's almost overcompensating, wrapping in fucking cotton wool, that it doesn't want that to happen. Because it's almost been like overexposed to things, the bad, that no, let's overcompensate and everything is sunshine and rainbows.
Really good point.
It was a really weird contrast. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Like, how the fuck did that happen? But
yeah, and that's an add-on too in terms of the I guess the dynamic and the structure of what is ideal masculinity, and I've had to really kind of like think on that long and hard as well. And what do I want to teach? What do I want to? What do I want myself to be? And also, what do I want to teach? And what ideally would be the best situation? And I think like I have this idea of this evolved man. I guess we've really got to take the modern times into consideration, but also we need to express ourselves, like you said. That expression, men need to be expressive. Otherwise, they'll keep it on the inside. They'll start resenting things, and then it comes out in different ways, like alcohol. You know what I mean? If you're holding something in, you're tense.
Yeah.
And that's going to show out in a different way. Gambling, drugs, alcohol, porn, sex, blah, 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 blah. Or you could be expressive on your path to a mission, and it's free flowing. You know what I mean? Like, you're letting the energy flow. So I had to think about like, well, what's this ideal kind of vision of masculinity? And for me, I really put it down to a nutshell. It's like, okay, cool. So it's a guy who's physically fit, mentally sharp, emotionally strong, and spiritually clear. And what I mean by spiritually clear is none of this hippie fucking kumbaya, fucking sitting around the fire, fucking, clapping beads or flicking with beads or shit. It's none of that. It's like spiritually clear means your fucking mission and path in life, and you fucking follow it. Yeah.
Where do you think Australia becoming a more or less and less religious and more atheist country, do you think that this has an effect on because I'm not religious myself, but a lot of the values taught are similar to that through religion, about how to treat one another and clearly define, I guess, gender roles. Do you think there is an effect from that of, a loss of identity through, we used to identify so much with a religion, and that was who we were. And now losing that, it's like, oh, fuck. Because you'll hear some groups, some non-believing groups saying like, well, I still live to how the Bible teaches, but I just don't believe in a magic man in the clouds. But do you think there's an effect on that as we become, that's one other thing we're losing an identity for, and could lose the lessons and values taught? Because if there is no cause and effect, then there is no reason in it.
Yeah, so I'm not religious either. What I think is that you've really got to look at things objectively. So if you look at religion, let's just say Christianity, you have to take the principles or the best principles away from the fables, the tales, the Bible, the blah, 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 right? Not circumstantially the fucking stories that are verbatim and, you know, John fucking said to Michael XYZ. Like, it's the principles. Yeah. I think you got to take the best, you know, from that, and then, you know, whatever works for you, like, do that. So I've never read the fucking Bible. I probably never will. However, I know through stories, I know the fucking foundational principles, you know, like treat other humans fucking good, and, you know, the neighbor fucking thing and all that sort of shit.
But that's sort of what I'm getting at, because those principles were so, when we were a vastly religious society, those principles are so ingrained in our communities. They still are. But as that community sort of dies out, do you think those principles, which we hold as, you know, whether you're religious or not, as a true good thing, do you think they will, those principles will diminish, and those, I guess, what we take as a good thing, you know, treat name how you want to be treated, as, you know, it dies out through an official teaching? Do you think that'll still hold true, and that'll be able to be taught as well?
Well, so this is the exact problem. So the part of the reason why I am, you know, so inspired to help men become fucking, you know, more masculine again, more effective, is because if we develop men into these role models and these leaders, then they're going to be foundational pillars within society. And these are these leaders that we look up to. So just like if you're in a religion, you look up to the pastor, or you look up to the God, or whatever it is, and you take the fables and the principles away from that within their doctrine. So I feel that it's up to men like, say, you and me, who can have an impact on other people, in order for them to grow into leaders themselves, in order to reinstitute into society a fundamental and a foundational understanding of being a good human being, instilling good stories back into the new generations, instilling good skill sets, you know, back into the new generations that are up and coming, things that are actually fucking practical, things that are actually fucking effective, teaching them to be like stoic in nature. So objective. It's like, this is the good and the bad. This is the up and the down. This is the in and out. This is the hot and cold. Don't put your fucking rose tinted glasses on. Just step back and take an objective view and make a calculated decision on, and sometimes a moral decision on what's right and wrong. So it's like swapping out religion, because religion's just a small part of the pie. It's the principles of what's right and wrong that's stood the test of time. Us as humans, even when we didn't have language, we knew what was right and wrong. So
it's a funny one. You look at like fucking dogs. Look at dogs fighting over a bone. They know what's right and wrong, as well. It's a weird one, and I think, you know, the world at the moment, what we're seeing on the news, and not to get political, but with everything, is it's just people fucking lost. They don't know where they identify with. They don't know their group. So even if they don't believe it, they are in a group. There's a really good extract from a psychologist talking, or psychiatrist talking about the flat earth conspiracy, and how it has had a massive rise. It was like fucking hundreds of years ago. It was like the fucking Egyptians were like, well, thousands, like, the earth's round. And everyone's like, dope, sweet. And it never became a fucking thing. It was just something we hold as a truth. Same with the moon landing on 1969, whenever they fucking landed, everyone believed the moon landing. But this psychologist extract is about why he believes people are in the flat earth community. And he said, if you were to fucking put them in a torture chair, they know that the earth is fucking round. but they have found a community of like-minded people and an echo chamber, and they actually belong to something. And he was breaking it down to, we take the piss out of flat earthers, fair enough, but they're not actually doing anything. It doesn't actually fucking hurt anyone. So why should we actually give a fuck about people believing something that is, objectively wrong? And he's like, but the reason they're attracted to it is they actually feel like they belong to something. And he breaks down the certain people in these are people who had, were probably bullied at school, haven't really found their way. They're not successful. There's no fucking Bill Gates or Elon Musk going, oh, the fucking world's flat. No. These are people that have struggled a little bit, haven't actually been accepted by a certain group, and they've found a group that accepts them for who they are. And he was going through all this is where people find themselves falling in, because even if they know it, it's, you sit around enough people eventually saying 2 + 2 = 5. You sit around enough people doing it, eventually you'll say it as well.
Totally.
And he was talking about the importance of finding your way into correct groups too, groups that you want to represent, because some of the people in these you may not want to. And you're seeing this at the moment. I look at some of the stuff going on that's big in the news recently. People, I like to think people are logical enough to know the truth behind that. But at the same time, they've found themselves an identity, and they would rather have an identity with a group that they belong to rather than be outcast and not have a group, and hold true to what they think.
Well, that's completely spot on, because you got to think like the way in which the human brain works is if you're outcast by the tribe, that means death.
Yeah.
If you have to go out as a single entity, a single unit outside of a tribe environment 10,000 years ago, you're dead. So, we'll do more to stick with the crowd than we will to speak up and say what's right.
Yeah. Well, look
because
at the
survival.
Look at the Nazi fucking Germans. People, and I know Dr. Peterson goes over this. Everyone's a fan of bloody Jordan Peterson, every bloke. But he goes over that people, if you say, would have you fought with the Nazis or been in the rebellion? Everyone's like, oh, of course I wouldn't have fucking. Well, the statistics is fucking not that. It's 99.9% fucking go with it. And that is, Germans were at the time, there's argument in this, but the smartest people in the world. Look at the fucking physicist. Einstein was a German Jew. What's his name? The guy who actually ended up sort of founding quantum theory and then making the ability to split the atom. He was German. Germans were not. It was the fucking 40s. They were not dumb by any means. But at the end of the day, it's that that's the toxic tribalism where, I'm keeping myself alive. I'm marching along in this. For sure. It's a cruel thing. Thank God very few things in life now have that level of you and your family will be killed if you don't join the fucking tribe. But
think about it. It's an identity.
It's an identity.
Identity as a German. Give up your identity as a German, or fucking just follow along with what we're saying, which is mild fucking persuasion, mild fucking, like brainwashing at the moment, and then just slowly gets more and more and more. It's not a jump from here to here.
No.
That's how they did it. They went segment by segment and more intense and more intense until finally they're just fucking exterminating. This is the Holocaust. And you're like, whoa, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
It's systematic.
Yeah. And you see it happening, man. You see shit like that. You're like, there's all the trademarks of what we should have learned back then. We needed to, we need to remember, look back at fuck ups we've made, and not having those polar sides and listening to each other of whether you're on the right or the left, but you still need to be able to listen to each other because there's good and bad in both of it.
Totally.
And being able to listen to someone you disagree with, but being able to listen and giving them time is fucking important, because otherwise you will find yourself in this echo chamber bullshit and someone telling you you're right, you're telling them you're right, even if you both don't believe it. And then you find yourself fucking wherever. It's a very dangerous to not have challenge. For not someone to say, actually, no, Mark, I think you're full of shit. Is an incredibly dangerous thing, even if you think they're an asshole for it.
Yeah, Yeah, it's needed. There's an objective truth, and then there's fucking all this subjective shit that goes on around it. And I think coming back to truth and center as much as possible, which was part of my philosophy, you know, is needed, because like if you could just go down this rabbit hole with these fucking blinders on, these blinders, right? You just go like this without being challenged, like you said. You lose perspective, and then all of a sudden you're fucking marching with the new fucking power Nazis.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I think from us talking about seeing social media, like a documentary on social media, I think we probably both watched the same Netflix fucking doco on it.
Yep.
And
the new one, right?
Sorry, the new one? Yeah.
The new one, right?
It's like trending at the moment.
Yeah.
I actually don't fucking know, but it's like number dilemma. 1 on trending. Social dilemma? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's it. And how social media actually puts those blinders on you. So if I look up just fucking flat earth theory, that's all I look up, it actually steers me down that path. Whether it is I personally don't believe they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it because they want clicks and time to make more money off their ads. And if they get me in that fucking everyone has started somewhere on YouTube and ended up 6 hours later watching 9/11 conspiracies. Everyone has fucking done it. But they start doing that, and it's actually social media is putting the blinders on you. And it's a fucking dangerous thing, and it's really important to, I guess, break that cycle and go, well, what is the other side to this? You know, you think, you know, these protesters or this happening is fucking mental. Well, what's the other side? Is there, am I wrong, or are they wrong, or is there a median here? Because we've almost lost that being challenged to one another, and those blinders are just up full time, being steered that we don't know.
What do you think? What's your stance on, like, jumping back to part of the question about the whole what we draw and pull from religion and what should be the fundamentals of society? To some degree, now there's good things and terrible things in the Bibles, and I don't think religion should be, you know, the basis of society. But at the end of the day, it's too ingrained with those what we hold as truths, I guess, which is the principles, to get away from ever. But I feel like going the other way is dangerous as well. So you look at your, it's a really hard one because I guess it's so engraved. Could we ever get rid of religion? No, maybe. Should it be taught as the good things as a history lesson? That's more where I think. I think we need to look at what good and bad has happened, and this is the bad shit religion's done. This fucking list. This is the good stuff that's come out of it. We don't fucking, you know, just go and rob our neighbour. But on the flip side, it needs to be taught as a history more of, well, this is what bad shit fucking communism has done. This is what Nazism did. I think it's all learning. It's all teaching people, because if you look into what's happening at the moment and these people who are not religious, parading around, doing whatever with a hammer and sickle fucking flag, and you're like, you obviously actually don't know that communism has killed hundreds of millions of people. You don't know what that represents. And I think the biggest thing is teaching people first and foremost, is learning and trying to have people at a young age develop their own, I guess, points of view on things, and through mistakes learn what's right and wrong. You know, oh, fuck, that's hot, I won't touch that. That's dangerous, I won't do that. Saying this on social media had no effect. Saying this in real life got me punched in the face. I probably won't fucking do that again. I'm not sure with religion. I think there's been good learnings in it. It's also had many fucking terrible things. There's a quote that's along the lines of, religion's the only thing that can make a sane man act crazy. But I think the more knowledgeable people are learning about
I guess taking yourself out of the center of the universe too, that you may not be the most important thing. This is when I was struggling with death, particularly because I'm not religious. I wish with my fucking diagnosis that I was super religious and I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go get some girls and drinks and shit after I'm dead. That's going to be wicked, floating in a cloud or some shit. I wish I was religious. It would have been a lot fucking easier to deal with. But it would have also made me pay off this part of my life, being the years I've got left. I did a lot of research into like astrophysics as far as learning about space and time and quantum theory and all this shit, because I wanted to know what the fundamentals of everything was and how I came about. And what it made me realize studying, the universe as a whole was that Matt Williams is not important in the grand scheme of things at fucking all. There's somewhere a million light years a fucking supernova happening with a fucking solar system bigger than ours we could ever imagine. And I have no influence on that. That won't influence me. But in the grand scheme, on this huge level, fuck all. But on the flip side of that coin, the fucking odds of Matt Williams and Marc Hardy sitting here as fucking grown men talking shit on this platform doing whatever, the odds of that are so tiny that it's such a special thing that we need to sort of hold as true of. Holy fuck. The odds of me being able to call someone an arsehole are that slim. We should all be walking around high-fiving and going, fuck yeah, we made it. Like, we've been born, especially if you're born in a country like Australia. You've rolled the fucking the fraction dice of, you're down at your percentages of trillionths of a percentage that you're actually alive in Australia in a time where, we're not walking around on horses with armour on to get fucking stabbed by some knight. Like, holy fuck, let's take for granted actually how lucky we are and how important we actually are to one another, because that's one of the things that made me realise, especially through, quantum mechanics, was how influential we are on one another and how lucky we actually are. And to try and, as much as you can, be present in the moment with people, because those moments never change. There's a whole theory in quantum physics that goes about time and space. And that time and space is everything in quantum theory on a big, net of time and space. There's a Simpsons episode that actually do it really well, where Homer falls through a wall and it's like a big grid lines. Yeah. Anyway, imagine we're just moving through time and space, how we are. And the more you start moving through space, the slower time will go, just on a graph. That's just how it works. Of course, it doesn't matter traveling at our speed. It only comes noticeable at speed of light stuff. But at the end of the day, the more space you move through, the more time you'll have, which I think is a lesson we can take into our everyday life. Because the more space you move through, the more time you'll actually sort of get to do stuff. You just sit around the couch, you'll do fucking nothing. Nothing will move for you. Time will move, space won't move, and time will tend to move even fucking faster. But on the flip side of time and space, and they can graph how you move through, there's splices of time, everything that happened in that moment. And one of the things physicist Brian Cox talks about is those moments actually still exist, although you can't actually access that moment. In the grand scheme of the fucking universe, they actually still exist on that time splice. Yeah. So they do these really obscure graphs which show you and your mother present at the same time when you were born. And then you move off, and then you come together at Christmas. And all those happy moments actually still are physically existing on that time frame that are graphable. You can't access it, but it still exists. And that's one of the ways I came to a theory of, happiness, was fuck, that time when I was super happy doing this or with this person, that actually still exists. We just can't access it, but it still is a real thing that happened. Yeah. It's made a dent on things around us. And anything moving through space has a physical change on time. And it's what we're doing every time is not only just us fucking around, it has a legitimate influence on how everything else works around us. And I think there's a beauty in it as far as we are all in this connected together, and so fucking lucky. And one of the other ones I bring down with people is there's a theory in quantum mechanics as well of you can never prove anything exists other than what you can interact with.
Yep.
So to prove something exists, you have to interact with it. So if I'm sitting in my office, I know my car's sitting outside, but I actually can't prove it unless I interact with it. And this is one of the sort of things I bring into my everyday life because I'm not actually smart enough to fucking write physics about it. But the way I break it down is trying to be more present in the moment using what I can interact with. So say you and me are sitting down having a coffee. There's all this other shit going on in our lives. You know, I'm worrying about socials and you're running your business and whatever. But unless we choose to interact with it, it doesn't actually exist. You can choose to not interact with it, primarily put your fucking phone down. But if you don't interact with it, by laws of physics, it doesn't actually exist in that moment. And I think that's one of the best ways to have more present moments is to not let yourself interact with other stuff in that moment and try and interact with, well, it's me and Mark sitting here having a yarn.
Yeah.
Outside of this, you know, this screen and this room, nothing else exists and I can't actually physically prove it. Learning that shit and, you know, realizing how we're nothing special to the universe, but we're special to each other, that really helped me come through dealing with, I guess, life and death and, how insignificant you feel. And I guess that's one of the things I just wish was taught more, that people actually understood. Yeah, no, fucking Jimmy, you're not the center of the fucking universe, but in here and now, you, me, and the other students are the most fucking important people in the world and nothing else means and needs to exist outside of this room.
Have you done any research on entanglement?
A little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, I mean, it ties into what you were saying about crossing over, and you know, the ties between, you were talking about your mum and yourself.
Yeah, it's a really
energetically
good one.
So go.
Oh no, sorry, you go. Yeah, I was just thinking about the whole theory of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like we're all energetically intertwined. If you cross paths with someone, you're linked energetically for that person forever. It ties into constructive and destructive energies. So like wave particles, obviously we're just matter, we're proteins with energy floating through it. And it's like 50 trillion cells in the body. Each cell has like 1.4 volts of electricity. There's like 70 trillion volts of electricity running through your body. If you have an entanglement with somebody and cross those waves, this is what we call good vibes and bad vibes. You know what I mean? Is how we can influence our environments.
And it's such a hard one. I one of the big ones I see, man, is just so much fucking hate in society. Like, people used to disagree and it was just disagreements. You know, let's agree to disagree. But now if you're on the other side of politics or the other side of what, people just the hate is just crazy. And you know, it's one of the biggest things I think is the misunderstanding of one another and our, I guess, default position of fight or flight is now hate. Because we can't run away from it because it's on our screens, it's on our TV, it's on everything. We don't fight in it because it's illegal, but we just hate each other. And there are people, and this is one of the funny things, I see people with Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan saying you're a Nazi. And I'm like, no, they're fucking not. Like, fuck off. And there's a whole nother kettle of fish to this. I actually think it takes away from what the Nazis did. And if I'm not Jewish, but I'd be like, hang on, Joe Rogan speaking his fucking mind, you're saying that's as bad as the mechanized killing of 6 to 8 million people? It actually takes away from it. But the level of hate and resentment for each other, it's beginning, I think, to almost spin out of control as well. And I think if we understood...
People can't handle an opinion.
Yeah, I think if we understood each other better, what the shit around us better, then it would help, I guess, mitigate that bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, it's gotten to a really bad stage, especially with social media. If people aren't in your tribe and of the same opinion, then they're automatically relegated to hatred, or I hate that circle. I hate, that affiliation of like, oh, hate. We can't ever talk, or, like be, what's the word? I've lost the word.
Yeah. I guess just, like be associated at all with that. I'm so far from that. And you will, like, I like to think no matter what side of the spectrum you fall on, whether you fall on the right wing, left wing, whatever, that you have traits of both. Because I know I do. Fuck, I have both, of extreme of both. But it's like people just identify with something and everything other than this is wrong. It's like, well, no, maybe someone just thinks this. Maybe they don't want to kill you. Maybe they just think differently. And the influences they've had through their life, and their upbringing, their schooling, their location, whatever, is just different. Why can't we accept that and move on, rather than just hate that person and wish they were fucking dead? Like, we're better than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're modern day fucking humans. Well, surely we're better than that. But it just shows, the more I see of it, the more these woke people tell me they're woke, it just shows me you're still a tribal fucking animal. That's all it shows me.
Yep. Yeah, there's some pretty funny shit getting around.
Fucking oath. Well, man, we've done an hour 41. I reckon that's pretty fucking good.
Solid.
Is there anything else you want to touch on while we're here?
Hey, like you said, this is just a bit of a chinwag.
Oh man, I love a fucking shit talk. This is how I want the whole channel to be. There's a lot that I like specifically, for, and I'm not taking the piss out of them at all. They're important. There's ones that are just mental health, or just cancer, or just mill. But I'm like, no, I'd rather just, because the whole premise of my show originally was to talk to people who came into my life through my journey of my diagnosis and my life, because it became, well, what happened in the beginning was these really incredible people started coming into my life, people that I would have never met otherwise, and had stories to tell, and maybe for some of them didn't have a platform to tell it, or someone wanting to hear it with them, or the ability to. So yeah, my whole premise of podcasting was, I don't care whether someone comes on and talks about whatever, or whatever we talk about. Talking with guys who are military is a little bit easier, because you start on sort of a common platform.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always like that. You could sit down with anyone in the army and, Secco, whatever's a dickhead. But it's just one of those things. Yeah, and that's the whole point. It's got no underwriting, like,
agenda.
Yeah, it's got no agenda. It's just a shit talk. Like, I had a religious pastor on once, and that was good.
Cool.
And it's just a shit talk, because I've had so many good people, like, and one of the blessings of my condition was I would have never met the people I've met, including yourself, and heaps of others that only came into my life through, I guess, misfortune or good fortune on the other side of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a bit of a chinwag, shit talk, fucking whatever.
Absolutely. Hey, it's been highly entertaining.
No, awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Is there anything, if you know to plug whatever, man, plug your stuff, plug your website, your socials, whatever, I can put links in, whatever as well. But if there's anything you want to say, go for it, man.
No, it's just easy. It's just I'm always on Facebook as Marc Hardy, so MarcHardy, and then Instagram is @TheMasculineEdge.
Yeah, and that'll be tagged in my shit as well once it goes up.
Yeah, vice versa.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much, man, for coming on and spending 2 hours-ish on a Wednesday morning. I got the day right that time. Oh, yeah, Wednesday morning, talking about all sorts of shit we're not qualified to talk about. Well, at least I'm not.
Yep.
Easy, man. Well, I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping this will be up in a couple of weeks for you. I've got another one to push out before you, with a big wave surfer, and he talks about fear. It's really interesting, man. There's this Aussie bloke. His name's Mark Visser. And he basically had this project going where he skydives out of a plane at like 10,000 feet with all this equipment so they can surf this wave in the middle of the ocean. It's just like in the middle of nowhere. But what happened was the loadmaster said to him, like, yep, whatever you do, don't go out behind the jet skis because they've got like a static line chute. And if that goes into you, you'll fucking be cactus. And he didn't know. And he said it was a compiling stress through all this media and sponsors and all this shit going on. Well, at the end of the day, he's just a surfer. And he talks about, and what his program does is trying to take away the stresses that you don't need, because he's like, you only have so much you can actually carry. And what happened to him was, so he ended up slipping over as the fucking jet skis went out the door of the plane. And then, of course, they're gone. Then to be on drop zone, they have to jump after, like skydive in. And he was already at like redlining stress levels. And once his parachute opened, he had his toggle stuck on his riser somehow and was just in a fucking turn and had like just blacked out on stress. And it had a full mental breakdown's not the word. He terms it better. Having like a full just blank, and he couldn't see flying in. And of course he had to land in the water, which is dangerous, of a fucking parachute landing into water, and then surf 100-foot wave and everything. And he talks about like he needed to really disconnect from the other shit. He's like, as we in his business, he's like, I needed to just tell the fucking photographers, no, you just do your job or talk to my manager. I'm here to surf or do this. And he's talks with guys in business about that. No. Your job is to do this. You have these other people do this. You need to take this stress off because, and this is a theory my psych put onto me, because I was struggling a little bit more with my mental health after diagnosis. And I was like, struggling with doing complex tasks or stressful tasks and going over the edge and being fucked up from it. And what it was, my psych was like, well, imagine you've got 10 points of stress. And once you go over 10 points, you are incapacitated. You useless. You can't work. Everyone's been there before where you freeze up. You don't know what the fuck's going on. He said a normal 20-year-old lives at, say, 2 or 3 points of stress, maybe 4. You don't have that much. You've got a little bit. Everyone has shit going on. You've got car wreck, your misses and whatever, and you live about there. And he said you don't realise where you're at, but before you get high, you don't know you're stressed. You don't feel more stressed until you're at like an 8. And he said what's happening with you is because of your trauma and whatever, you might think you're relaxed, but you're living at like a 7 now.
Yeah.
And before, when you were at a 3, your buffer zone before you become incapacitated was 7 more points. He said now you're living at a 7 and you're used to that, but your buffer zone is still only 10 and you've got 3 more points of stress before you've just gone. And I'm like, fuck, that is so true, because I have little things just drive me fucking insane that I don't realise is happening. That I wouldn't have got pissed off about or wouldn't have had an effect on me, and now it does. Mark really breaks down that backpack of stress we carry and trying to get rid of some of that so we have a larger buffer zone of stuff so we can actually perform more complex tasks better for yourself and those around you. It's an interesting one.
What a legend, and like really important skill and learning to have. Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever be fucking not stressed out in 100-foot surf, but that's something so his whole thing, I'm spoiling it for everyone, but he fell into a trough on a farm as a kid, and kids are very top heavy, so he almost drowned, and he was like 3. Wow. He can't even remember it. Like he can't remember it all, but he has this almost unconscious like post-traumatic stress, I guess, of water. Yeah. And the only way he found to have any relief in that was become a professional big wave surfer and surfs these 80-foot shit, surf Jaws at night, like an 80-foot day at Jaws at night with a backpack with a torch on it. I'm like, fuck that. I guess that's one way to go about, kicking your stress in the ass, but fuck.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that pinnacle in life, it's like make or break. It's like the reason or the excuse. You either use the fucking external thing, the event, as the excuse to like buckle down, or you use it as the reason to fucking level up. Like I find that so fascinating.
Yeah, well, you could have had the exact same with everything that went on with yourself. You could have gone, fucking, I'm giving up.
Yeah, totally.
It's so much. It is easier to swing from the fucking rafters than actually look yourself in the mirror and go, yep, I need to fucking unfuck my life and go from here. But
totally.
Awesome. Well, before we chat for another hour, let's do this. Well, man, it's honestly great having you. Everyone jump across onto those. I'll put some links in there, but it's Marc Hardy on Facebook or the Masculine Edge. What'll be tagged on my Instagram as well. So thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Willy, fucking love chatting to you, man, and look forward to chatting to you in the future, just offline and stuff.
Yeah, fucking oath. We'll have a fucking beer once the borders open.
Damn straight.
Easy. Okay, thanks for that, bro. Have a great day.
Thanks, Willy. See ya.